Hello friends, welcome to Edwiki Learning channel. Please do subscribe to get more updates on the DevOps concepts. This video is part of the full course AWS DevOps Practitioner training. Please do check the description below to get the link for the complete full course. Without further delay, let's get into the video. Thank you.
Uh, yeah, so by now we are all know some of the AWS concept, not completely, but at least we know some stuff, right? So how many of you get bored by using the AWS Management Console by now? I really get bored of AWS Management Console because each time I need to come to one of the service, and each time when I am trying to create a services, right? Uh, no, I need to fill a lot of options in the form, right? Maybe you can chime me in, right, to support my statement, or you deny the statement, whatever you feel, that is still be fine, right? So definitely I feel there are two challenges for me to manage this AWS infrastructure from the AWS Management Console. One challenging is every time when I'm trying to create one resource, I need to fill up the form. You see here, if I go to launch instance here as an example, right, there are a lot of options are came in here. I need to go and start filling up everything. Here I'm taking EC2 as an example. Don't say that there is a launch template to fill it up. Yeah, usually I will never forget to record the sessions, guy, but yeah, I thought of, did I forget? No, I have not forgotten. The session is already in recorded. Thanks for highlighting that. Okay. Uh, yeah, so like any resource that you are creating, right? There's a lot of form that you get it. You need to fill up this entire form. This bit of boring, and this is keep on like manual activity every time to fill this form, right? That's one thing. The thing is, when you get into the infrastructure deployment in the AWS, this is not a single click of deployment, right? For example, if I open any one of the AWS architecture like that, okay, to have your infrastructure ready and up and running, right, for your web server. Let me take a pause here. Please, someone acknowledge in the chat window that you are able to hear me and able to see my screen, right? It's all recording in progress, I believe. Yeah. So when someone posted that the screen is not showing, when you say yes, yes, screen is not showing. You got me what I'm trying to, guys? So just give two words that the screen is visible. Not for me actually. Whoever has posted a question will understand that, okay, look like the problem is my side. You got me what I'm trying to? Thank you. That's a clear communication, right? Well, so the second challenging here is right, the AWS is not given a one-click solution, guys, correct? If you want to deploy a web application which is maintaining the security, high availability, and scalability features, right? You need to go and do a lot of resources creation, and we need to integrate them in a nice way, correct? You will be creating load balancers separately, target group separately, auto scaling group separately, launch template separately, security group separate, right? The VPC separate. You should tie them in a right fashion to make this infrastructure, right, working for your use cases, correct? That's the biggest thing. When you are trying to deploy a overall a final architecture in AWS, creating an infrastructure by tying all these resources together is one challenging. The other challenging is somehow, let's say you deployed everything. Now, if I ask you, hey, I think we don't need this setup, go and destroy everything in AWS. How difficult it is, guys, and I'm sure you might be already faced these challenges, right? So once you do the lab practice, and if you wanted to clean up everything just to avoid the billing or whatever the reason, right? we should know which resource that we need to delete first and then the which one. So there is a sequencing, right? I can't go and delete a VPC first by keeping my instances up and running in the VPC, right? That will not allowed. So this is the biggest challenging, at least for now, in AWS Management Console to create and maintain my infrastructure and also destroying the infrastructure in a way. In simple word, I would say creating the infrastructure in AWS and managing the infrastructure is really a challenging in AWS, especially using the AWS Management Console. Hope you agree with my statement, right? To overcome this challenge, right? So the Terraform has given you the flexible way to deploy and manage the infrastructure on your AWS cloud. That is where now we are improvising the the style of deployment and managing the infrastructure on AWS, right? With the help of the Terraform start from today lecture. Okay, that means whatever the resources, sorry, whatever the resources that I have shown to you guys on AWS Management Console so far, all those resources I will be deploying using the Terraform code. So if you look into this slide, guys, okay, so when I'm planning to deploy some infrastructure architecture in AWS like this by creating the VPC, Internet Gateway as an example, right? And public subnets associating to the zones, right? And the corresponding route tables, right? And deploy the security, easy to, this is how you keep on doing and integrate everything, right? Rather struggling all of these, the Terraform says that, hey, why do you worry about creating all of them from AWS Management Console in a hard way? Rather, you write a piece of code. You see here, guys, this is called as a Terraform code. Okay, you write a piece of code. In this Terraform code, you mention what and all infrastructure resources that you are looking for in AWS and how you are expecting them to be connected. You pretty much how your AWS architecture, everything you define in the form of a code. You write a code. Now you deploy this code. That means you execute the code. We all familiar, right? What is it mean by the code or the script? You put some instructions in a file and you execute the file, right? So you write a Terraform code in a file, you execute this Terraform code, then the Terraform will understand that how you are expecting the infrastructure. The Terraform now will go to, I mean to say the Terraform will connect it to AWS and will be creating your whole infrastructure at one go. You see here in this case, let's say I write a Terraform code, right? The Terraform code technically calling it as a infrastructure as a code. You see IaaC in the sense infrastructure as a code. That means your whole infrastructure resources or your whole infrastructure architecture now became a code. That's it, right? Your entire infrastructure is now available in the form of a code that is called as an infrastructure as a code, right? Sometimes we can, from the Terraform side, rather calling it as a Terraform code, we also call it as a Terraform template, like just a terminology changes, right? So when we have the infrastructure as a code ready, you just execute the code that will take care of deploying your whole infrastructure resources in your AWS the way how you need it. You see, it's one single click. That is the advantage that the the Terraform is providing for you. Being said that, if you get into the real time, I'm sure no one is managing the infrastructure in AWS from the console, guys. The way how we go to console and create everything from mouse click, right? No, we will not be doing that. Rather, we heavily depend on your Terraform code, write a code accordingly, and just deploy the code that will take care of creating your whole AWS infrastructure stack. That way, It's one single click, right? It's in order to create infrastructure, one single click in order to destroy the infrastructure as well. When I say one single click, it may be a click or it may be a command. Basically, the Terraform will help you in terms of running the commands. So in like one single command to deploy everything, one single command to destroy everything. That's how the things will make more easier, guys. Are we good with this statement? Right? So I'm going in a different style of delivery today, going in little slow manner because we need to adopt this new culture again altogether, because we are completely coming out from the graphical user interface towards the coding style, right? Good. So thanks for the acknowledgement. Now let's see what is this Terraform and right. So what is the background of this Terraform and how the Terraform is helping to manage this entire infrastructure, right? So let's say if I go to Terraform, I'm just navigating to the Terraform website. Terraform.io is the official website where the Terraform related documentation and materials, all the different stuff that you can get it. This is the official vendor portal, right? So this is the source of truth, guys. Source of truth in the sense, any tool that you are learning, the tool has their own corresponding official website, right? That is where you get the proper documentation, proper information. I would advise you all rely on your vendor specific official websites only to get most of the accurate information rather any other third parties. Now if you look into the Terraform here, right, the HashiCorp is the company, right, who has actually developed this Terraform product. The Terraform is not a Amazon product. Terraform is not the AWS product. Hope this is clear, right? The Terraform is the tool that is invented by the company called HashiCorp. So HashiCorp company has developed this Terraform style of infrastructure as a code, and these guys are giving this flexibility to manage your AWS. How that will be done, we'll definitely see that, right? So if I look into the Terraform documentation here, right, there is a doc here. That's where you can get into the documentation. You can see a lot of documentation that is available here. Okay. So now sometimes searching it in Google is more easy, right? Rather going and looking into their documentation. Of course, Google will just redirect it to the same. So let's say I wanted to know how to use the Terraform for AWS. Okay, so like here the AWS is treated as a provider, guys. That means if I get into their documentation, so I just wanted to go to, not here, give me a second. AWS providers list. Okay, so you see here, guys, the HashiCorp has invented the Terraform. Okay, the Terraform is not just for AWS, right? The Terraform is actually supporting to automate the infrastructure of multiple vendors or multiple providers in a way. Rather me using the terminology called vendor, I'm using the terminology called provider. Provider is the official term that we are using when it comes to the Terraform world. Okay. So if you see here, there are almost 35 different providers that the Terraform is supporting as of today. That means using this Terraform concept, we can automate the deployments of your infrastructure resources on AWS, on Google Cloud, on Kubernetes, and you can see like the Azure. And if you click on more, you see that the Terraform is supporting for various different other platforms as well that are actually provided by different vendors, right? So all these are not actually from one company, right? They are all from different companies. Azure is there, right? Salesforce is there. Many other things are there. The Terraform has a way to automate all of these different vendors platforms in an efficient manner. That's the one advantage using the Terraform here. Let's say in your project, in your company, you are using AWS Cloud. Let's say you are using Kubernetes, you are using, let's say, Azure. You don't need to rely on a different programming languages to manage the infrastructure of all of them. A single Terraform will enough to manage the infrastructure of AWS, right? And Kubernetes, maybe Google Cloud, whatnot. That's that's the biggest advantage that we see, right, from the Terraform, guys. The overall architecture and the way how the Terraform works will be the same for all of these. There will be slight difference in terms of the integration and the platform level, but more or less the Terraform architecture is same. Like how the Terraform is working to deploy the infrastructure on AWS, it will be the same in deploying the infrastructure in Azure as well. There will be slight changes there and there, but overall the flow will be the common. That way, it will be easy for us to manage the infrastructure resources of different cloud providers using a single Terraform code. Good, right? So, but here we are focusing on how we can use the Terraform to deploy the infrastructure on AWS. So I will fully concentrating on how to write a Terraform code to deploy something on AWS, not on any other vendors for now. Okay. So if I wanted to use the AWS to manage the infrastructure using Terraform, then I will be calling AWS as a provider. You got me right? The terminology. Rather using the vendor, I'm using the term called a provider. So I would say that Terraform is supporting for multiple providers. Out of all these providers, we are now using AWS provider in order to start working with the Terraform to start writing the code. The moment when you select AWS as a provider that you wanted to work on, that's where you get into the documentation here. Just click on the documentation here. So this is where the Terraform will explain that how to use AWS provider and what are the different ways to use the AWS provider to start writing the Terraform code. And you can see some sample Terraform code as well here to work with the AWS specifically. Good to know, right? Now, if you really wanted to use the Terraform, right? So the very first thing is the Terraform software has to be installed. Okay. So in your development system, what does it mean by the development system terminology, guys? The development system in the sense where exactly you are trying to write a Terraform code, where exactly, that means in which system you are trying to write a code, in which system you are trying to execute the code, right? That system is called as a development system, correct? So most of the cases, right, in order to develop the Terraform code, right? So we will be using our local system. What is local system? Local system in the sense our own laptop. Let me put it that way, correct? Like in which laptop you currently logged in which laptop you currently do your office job, right? That laptop itself is called as your local development system. Even when you get into the real time, right, you will be writing the code on your own laptop, right? So your system, your local system is called as a development system. So if I'm using my local development system, which is my system, to write a Terraform code, right? So we need to install the Terraform software, right, in your system first of all, because I need the Terraform software to execute this particular code. Okay. So in order to install the Terraform software, okay, in your development system, wherever you are writing the code, most of the cases or 99 cases, it will be your same local system, right? So let's see how to install the Terraform software. I wanted to install the Terraform software. If you get into the the if you get into the documentation here, you can see that how will you install the Terraform, right? And you see here how to install the Terraform on Mac system, on Windows system, on Linux system, and of course we need to follow this whole bunch of steps, guys, in order to start installing the Terraform software, right? Sometimes I do recommend to start using the chat GPT as well, so that your your overall length of the documentation will go minimal, right? Now you see, let's say you wanted to install it on a Windows. Why should I be worry about the Mac, Linux, all these things? We should spend some time here to eliminate the unnecessary stuff and focus on the one which you really wanted to write. So that's where the chat GPT became more popular, right? So if you get into the chat GPT, that will take you to the right place immediately rather spending more time. Let's say I wanted to know, hey, can you help me to install Terraform on Windows? Okay, so you'll get accurate information, right? You see, this is the steps that you need to follow to install it on a Windows only. If you say Linux, it will just give you the Linux based concepts. That's how it's very straight to the answer, whatever you need it. Okay, so let me follow this ChatGPT recommended steps here to install the Terraform on my Windows system, right? And you see here, visit the official Terraform website. Okay, let me go there. That is where the ChatGPT has to do little improvement, guys. You see, like it is telling go to here, and there is no hyperlink enabled here. Yeah, the hyperlink is not enabled here. So that's the thing. Yeah, we'll get the improved version anyway. Let me go to Terraform downloads. Okay, you see here, right? Install the Terraform, the Mac, Windows. Okay, in the Windows, you see that the AMD 64 version is there. And how many of you know this, guys? What is it? AMD 64. What is it? 386. Or what is this AMD 64? Or what is it? ARM. I think I given this differences at the time of me showing you how to launch a EC2 instances. Is basically a processor architecture, right? So when you are trying to install the Terraform software in your local system, you need to decide your system is currently containing which processor architecture. You need to download the corresponding one to be compatible, or else it will not work, right? So most of the cases, your systems, if you are in Windows, I'm sure most of your cases, your processor will be a Intel based architecture, which is same as AMD 64. That's how you choose and download the Terraform software here. There are n number of different ways are there to install the Terraform, guys, even in Windows, even in Linux. And this is one approach that I'm showing here, which is more easy and a portable way, right? If you come to this again here, let's say I wanted to install the Terraform. Okay, so if I come to this particular documentation and if I go here, right, I want to install the Terraform on Windows system, and you see that the chocolate is the command that it is recommending you to install the Terraform. This is one approach, right? This is like a m install command in the Linux system, right? In the Linux system, if you do m install, it will install the package for you, right, by downloading it from the repositories. Same way, if you don't want to go with this approach, and you see there is another approach here where you download the software yourself and then configure the software how you want it to. So I do prefer using this download option, which is more convenient and the portable way, rather installing it using the chocolatey or like a M, right? So even for Linux guys, you can see here there is a download option. You can download the software to your Linux systems directly, and you see there is a ARM processor as well here, compatibilities, right? So for now, let me download this in my Windows system. I think the file is already downloaded here as a zip file. So let me go to that particular folder. Now let me copy the file. I just have got the zip file. So for now, let me keep this file in somewhere in my, another folder. Let's say I'll just go with any folder is fine. What I do is I'll just go to C colon, okay, because most of the softwares we will be keeping it in C colon, right? But it's up to you guys where you wanted to keep on. Maybe I'll just go with D colon. Let's say I will create a folder called softwares. I'll go inside that. I'm keeping my zip file. Now let me extract this zip file to see what is inside. Right, inside there is one single file available. Okay, now I don't need the zip file, right? Because already I extracted this. I deleted my zip file. Now you see that I have the Terraform file is available. So this is the Terraform file that I need to use in order to start using the Terraform software, correct? You don't need to install because I already downloaded a zip file. You extract the zip file and you got a file, and that file you need to start executing and start using the Terraform tool, right? So where do you execute this command, guys? Right? This is actually a script, okay? Whatever the file that you received here, right? This is actually a script. How do you execute a script usually? You need to go to the command line, right? Agree with me, right? Let's say now I downloaded the Terraform software in my local development system because I wanted to, work on infrastructure as a code, right? Now, in order to execute this Terraform software, I need to be in a command line. Open the command line as usual, right? If it is Windows, you go with your Windows CMD. Linux and Mac already has its own bash terminal, right? So go to the command line, then you need to run the command, guys. The thing is, right, if you run the Terraform command like this, how your command line know that the Terraform command is actually available in the specific location? You are following me, right? Usually, if you install the package using the M command or like using the chocolatey command in the Windows system, then it know that the softwares are installed in which location. It will update the location paths automatically. But especially if you are not installing the packages, rather you are downloading the zip file and you are keeping the software in the specific location where you want it to be. You see, in this case, I'm keeping my software in the D colon in the softwares, right? Correct. So if you are running the command, how it know that the Terraform package, the Terraform software is available in the D colon in the software folder? You got me what I'm trying to? So in this situation, you need to tell to your system that, hey, I copied my Terraform software in the specific location. You go to that location and get your Terraform script and execute it. That is where you need to update the path of your software where it is located, or else it will not work, or else it will say that, hey, I don't know where the Terraform is available. Getting me? So in order to update the path of the Terraform software where you actually extracted, copy the path, this path. Now go to your system. Maybe I'll just go properties. I'm just showing it in the Windows system, guys. I'll definitely talk about how to do this in Mac and Linux systems as well, right? Somewhere there should be a option advanced system settings, right? And somewhere you can see the environment variable, okay? So if you are using the different Windows flavored operating system, then the steps may be differ. You just check it out which OS that you are using. Maybe you can just Google how to update the environment variable in the Windows system. You'll get to know the steps, okay? In this case, let me go to the environment variable tab here, and here you can see path path. So this is where you need to tell in which location you have kept your Terraform software. Edit the path. Now you just go to I want to keep one more path and tell that, hey, I kept my Terraform software on the specific location, right? Just mention that over there. That's it. Now click on OK and click on OK and OK. So then your system now know that, hey, that is the location where the Terraform software is there. So whenever you are running the Terraform command, right, it will just look into that path. It will go to that location and it will pick up that software which already kept in. Then that software will be get executed. Are we good with that? Now you see that my Terraform command is working as expected. Now it is telling that the Terraform is the command that we need to use to execute our Terraform software. Hyphen version is the flag that we need to give in order to know which Terraform version that we downloaded and we kept it there. Good. In your case, okay, in your case, whenever you update the path in the Windows systems, your command may not work immediately, guys. You need to reboot your system in order to take the changes effective. In my case, it is working because I have configured this earlier as well. But you need to reboot your system if you are doing it in very first time to make this command in working state. Good to know. So the thing is, now onwards, the Terraform is all a command line based case. So we need to run the Terraform commands only, right? There is no graphical user interface to work with the Terraform, right? So now I need to work with some commands, right? The thing is, at least for me, okay, it's difficult to run the commands on the Windows CMD. How many of you are facing the same thing, guys? Correct? Especially, we are all working on the Linux systems in order to configure our web servers and everything, right? And all of a sudden, if you need to do something on your local system in a command line, right, working in the Windows CMD is little harder because the Windows CMD will not work with your the traditional Linux commands in a way, right? Let's say pwd, you see it is not working, right? So it's always better to keep your bash shell installed in your Windows as well. Getting me what I'm trying to? So because we are already familiar with the bash shell, right? The bash shell will know our commands. We can easily interact with the bash shell. We already expertised with some of the bash shell basics. So if you are using the Windows system, if you are a Mac guy, then we don't need to worry because the bash shell is already there. If you are using the Linux, already bash is there. If it is a Windows, it's better to install a bash shell so that you can work as like a Linux system only. You don't need to worry about learning the Windows based commands. Are we good with that? If that is the case, now I don't want to use this Windows CMD. Rather, I wanted to use the bash in my in my Windows itself, right? So I'll go to ChatGPT again. I will ask that, hey, can you tell me bash like terminals available for Windows? Okay. So it is telling that, right, you can actually install the bash shell on your Windows system as well, and these are the different possibilities are there. The first possibility that you see, that is a WSL, right? And the second possibility that you see, it is something called as a git bash, right? And you can see a sigwin. So you can use anything that you like it, guys. Okay, all of these are actually giving you the bash shell only with the different capabilities. Okay, so the WSL will not be supported for all the Windows systems. Only a specific systems will be supported, which will be a fully a Linux terminal. All the Linux concepts will work on the WSL. There is no restrictions almost, right? But here we are not really working on the Linux system, right? Why need some of the Linux kind of the terminal for me to work on? So to have the, like, in upcoming sessions we are also working on the Git as well, right? The Git tool will know later in the, that is a part of the DevOps anyway. So considering that the Git bash is the recommended one, which is easy to install, easy to operate, and this is good enough for our specific job role. Okay, so you need to install the Git bash in your system, so in order to work with the bash terminal on the Windows as well, guys. So easy, right? So if you want, we can use the sigwin as well, but yeah, I do prefer to go with the git bash. It's more easy to work on. And anyway, down the line, when you are working on the DevOps side, you need a git concepts as well, right? So the git bash will help to give you the bash shell, as well as it will help you to work with the git as well in upcoming lectures in the DevOps sessions, right? So how to install the git bash, right? Again, that's what is like this here. Hey, can you tell me how to install the git bash, right? So just follow the steps to install the git bash on your Windows system, and you do the necessary steps to make it configurable. That way the bash terminal will be available for you. Okay, all what you need to do is just go to the specific location where you can download the git bash. This is where you can see download option. Just download the git bash and install it. If it is Linux, you don't need to, right? Because we have the bash shell already there, and right. So just download it and install it. This is basically a .exe file. You see, this is just a .exe file, right? You can just click on that .exe, then that will be get installed. And you already familiar, right? How to install the .exe files on the Windows systems. It is just matter of filling the some form and clicking on next, next, next. That's a pretty standard way to install the packages on the Windows systems, right? Most of the time I'm spending on the introductory part because we should prepare all this ground before I get into the actual implementation part. Okay, so let me close this. You see, this is how the screen comes in, right? So you just need to go and follow the steps, then the bash will be installed for you. Here I'm not actually installing because the bash is already installed in my machine, so I don't need to use this installation one more time. I'm skipping this option. Once it is installed, you just go to the search and just search for the bash. Now you see here git bash is available, and just click on that. That is how now it will be opening the git bash terminal, guys. You see, this is actually a git bash terminal, and most of the Linux commands will work here. You see, the pwd is working, and it is telling that hey, you are on C users user. You see the notation, guys. This is not showing it as C:// because this is now a bash terminal, right? It is showing as like a Linux system /c/user/user. It's more easy to work on, right? So let's say Terraform ---- version. Even your Terraform commands will continue working on this bash terminal. So now onwards, I will be using this bash terminal in order to run all of my commands that I wanted to run in my Windows system, rather using the Windows CMD. If you want, yes, you can use the Windows CMD, but I do feel comfortable, right, in using the bash terminal. Are we good with this? So the bash is available, the Terraform software is also available, right? So now I need to start writing the code, right? So how do you get start with writing the code, guys? First thing is, right, the first thing is go to your development system. In our case, your your laptop itself is called as a development system, right? So in your system, right, you create a folder where you wanted to keep your code, correct? That's the very first thing that you need to do always, right? Let's say I'm creating a folder. Let's say I wanted to keep my Terraform code. Maybe I'll just use a specific folder. Maybe I'll keep my folder here. Let's say this is the Terraform folder. Maybe Terraform underscore code, okay? Right? So the very first thing is you create a folder in which folder you wanted to keep your Terraform code, correct? That's the first thing. Once you decide in which folder you wanted to keep your code, the second thing is you start creating a file in it, right? Hey, in this folder now I wanted to keep my Terraform code. You create a simple file, maybe a notepad file, right? Now you open the file. Now you start writing the code, correct? If it is Linux system in general, what you do? You just do a VI and open the file and you start writing the content in the file, right? If it is Windows, obviously the notepad file. So now I need to start writing the code here, guys. How to write a code? That is where we need to get the syntax from the Terraform itself. Now, if I look into the Terraform documentation and ask the Terraform that, hey Terraform, tell me how do I get start with writing the Terraform code for AWS provider? That is where the Terraform documentation telling that, hey, you see, this is the sample code that you need to use, right? So this is how we need to write a code. Let me copy this sample code for now. I'll keep it here. The problem is, don't worry how to write a code, but the problem is it's very difficult to write a development code on the editors like a notepad. Can I call the notepad as an editor, guys? I can say notepad is the editor, right? Like a VI is the editor in the Linux system, like that the notepad is the editor in the Windows system, right? Any programming language that you are writing on, right? Those programming languages are very strict in terms of maintaining these syntaxes. You see somewhere it is keep telling that, hey, this is how you need to maintain the curly braces. For any reason, if you don't give one curly braces, your code will not work. That's how it is important to maintain the syntaxes. The problem with your notepad editor, right? You don't know. Let's say if I'm not giving this bracket, how do you know whether this is good or not, right? So you need some assistant, right, from the Terraform side to tell you if at all for any reason if you do any mistakes while you're writing the code, it should able to warn you, hey, look like you forgot this curly brace. You forgot one more curly brace. Let's say it has to warn you that, hey, look like you forgot this equal sign. You got me what I'm trying to, right? So there should be someone to warn you if at all you are doing some mistakes in at the time of writing the code, especially the syntax level of issues that you will not get it from the simple notepad editors. So that is the reason, right? It's very hard to write a code in the plain editors, right? That is the reason we need to depend on the code editors, right? So there are some code editors are there. Okay, those code editors are matured enough to understand the syntaxes, and if any mistakes are in the syntax, it will tell you, hey, you made some mistakes on so and so line, please go and fix it. That is how it is easy for us to write a code, guys. And here you can see some lot of different code editor softwares that are available. You can use anything that you like it basically, and there are few more as well. If you go to here, you see there are many, right? Each and every code editor is expertised in a specific programming language, right? Let's say if you are actually writing the Java code, the people will prefer to go with the Eclipse tool. If you are writing the Python code, the people will prefer to go with the PyCharm, right? Like that, each and every tool is little specified or specialized for a specific programming languages. So we need to see which code editor is best suitable for our job responsibility you to work as a automation engineer, right? So out of all this, I do recommend to use the tool called Visual Studio. You see here the Visual Studio. So the Visual Studio is the code editor, right, which will help you to write a Terraform code, which will help you to write a Ansible code, which will help you to write a Python, whatever. Anything that you are needed to do your automation engineer role, the Visual Studio Code is the best tool. But we can use any other as well if you wanted to. Now, how to get started with the Visual Studio Code? Correct? Because we have chosen that, hey, this is the tool that I wanted to use. Right now, I need to know how to download, install, set up the Visual Studio Code. Right? So now let's see how to install VS Code. In shortcut, we call it as VS Code. Right? Right? I wanted to install the VS Code, which is Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is actually the product of Microsoft company. Right? This is the Microsoft product, guys. Okay. So now you see this particular documentation you see here. In order to download the Visual Studio Code for your Windows systems, you can use it for Linux and Mac as well. You can look into the specific operating system flavor to know how to install this in your specific favorite OS. Right? Since I'm using Windows, this is applicable for me. Just go here and just download the software. You will get one exe file downloaded. Just double click on the file. It will just proceed with the VS Code installation process, right? So once the software is installed, I'm not showing how to install it because installation will take at least 10 to 15 minutes. Again, we don't need to write. This is simple steps to click next, and install the software. However, I'm giving you a video, pre-recorded video, how to install the softwares, including the Terraform and the Visual Studio Code as well. You can refer to that offline just to see if you get stuck up there, right? So once you download and install the Visual Studio Code software, right, all what you need to do is just search for your VS Code from your search bar. You see here, in my case, the Visual Studio Code is already installed and you just click on that software. That is how it will open the Visual Studio Code editor now. I'm preparing my platform, guys. I'm preparing the whole setup that is needed for me to get started with writing the code. Right? It is actually opening the software for you. Right? You see that this is how my Visual Studio Code software is opened. All what I need to do here is, okay, what I need to do here is go to the file option here. Once the software is open, go to the file option. You see here, open the folder, click on open the folder. Now you open the folder where you intended to keep your code files. Sometime back I created one folder, right? Saying that, hey, I wanted to keep my Terraform code on that folder. So just open the folder here. You see, this is my Terraform code folder. Just click on that, select the folder. I'm just opening the folder, right? In which folder I wanted to keep my Terraform code. The Visual Studio Code will now open that particular folder in the tool itself. You see here, in the left side navigation, you can see your folder which is got opened and the files that are there inside the folder. Just understand that I'm currently working on the Visual Studio Code editor, but the folder and the files are still at your OS level, correct? These are your Windows files only, guys. You see, in the Windows system, in the specific folder where I wanted to keep my code, I have the file here, right? The same thing is now appeared in your Visual Studio Code. This is not a complete a different folder. This is not a different file. Is it clear? Because most of you think that I'm creating a files here. Let's say if I create a file here, let's say the file one, hit enter as an example. Where this file is created, this file is actually created in the folder of your system. You see, if I go back to my Windows system and see, your file is created here. Rather opening these files in your plain text editor, I'm actually using these files in the Visual Studio Code editor. That's only the difference. These files, the folder is still at your OS level only. In order to make the things easier, right, the Visual Studio Code editor is actually divided it into multiple panels. The left side panel is actually showing you the folder and the corresponding files that are there inside the folder. Once you select the file in which file you wanted to keep your code, then you see the right side editor panel. So this is where you need to start writing some content or a code into that file, guys. You see the file is open here, the second file is open here, like that. This is the editor panel. For now, I don't want to use these dummy files. Let me delete it. I can just click on delete button. I deleted all the files. You see that the files are actually deleted from your system only. Now onwards, I don't need to create a file on your OS level, guys. I can start doing anything from my Visual Studio Code only. The very first time I created a folder and I just open the folder here, and now you create a file here. So you give the name of the file, right? You give the name of the file, right? And let's say this is my Terraform code. Maybe this is my code. It can be any name, right, guys? The file name could be anything. I would say like maybe provider, because I'm trying to work on AWS provider for now, right? Provider. Any file that you are creating to keep your Terraform code, the file should have the extension called .tf, that is mandate, right? Any file that you are trying to keep the Terraform code inside the file must be having the .tf extension. The moment when you give the .tf extension, the name could be different, guys. You can use any name that you like it, not a worry. The moment when you give the extension as .tf, then your Visual Studio Code identified that this file is intended to keep the Terraform code. That is where you can see the Terraform logo is appeared automatically for your file, because your Visual Studio Code understood that this is the Terraform file. Let's say if you say, hey, I wanted to write a Python code as an example, the extension will be .py. You see, it is automatically identified that this is for Python. Let's say I wanted to work on the AML program. It's identified. I wanted to work on the Java. You see, so that means based on the extension, your Visual Studio Code is identifying that that file is for which programming language. Then it can suggest you on the syntax related errors. Good. Now let me create a file with the .tf extension, because I wanted to keep the code in the Terraform. Hit enter. Now the file is created and the corresponding file is opened in the editor panel. Now you start writing the code here. If your Visual Studio Code should understand that this is the Terraform file and showing you the Terraform logo automatically like this, right? Because the Visual Studio Code may not understand all the programming languages. There are hundreds of different programming languages that are available in the market, right? Start from Java, PHP, HTML, whatnot. how your Visual Studio Code understand all of this, correct? So whenever you install the Visual Studio Code software, by default, it is installed with certain common popular programming languages related extensions. Getting me? But for any reason, if you don't see that this particular extension is not understood by your Visual Studio Code, let's say when you're trying to do this setup in your machine, if you create a file as .tf, let's say your TF file is not understood, it is not showing you the Terraform logo. Maybe it is not giving you the recommendations, syntax issues, suggestions. Then you go to this extension tab. You see there is extension tab here. Go to the extension tab. This is where you need to install the extension. Let's say now I wanted to work on Terraform. Search for the Terraform extension. Right now you get into the Terraform extension. This is the one, HashiCorp one. You see currently this Terraform extension is already installed. If not, you just need to install this software. It's not a software, this is the extension. Don't get confused about the Terraform software that I already downloaded and installed in my machine sometime back and the Terraform extension that I'm keeping in my Visual Studio Code. Both are different, guys. The Terraform software that I downloaded is actual Terraform software. What is this? This is the Terraform extension that I'm adding to my Visual Studio Code. That way, the Visual Studio Code can understand the Terraform syntaxes so that it can suggest you on the syntax related issues. Getting me? Like that, there are n number of different extensions are there based on the programming language that you are trying to develop. We need to search and install the corresponding extension here. For now, I don't need to install anything. The Terraform extension is already there, so I can just go to the Explorer tab here and start writing the code here. With this, I'm done with all the necessary prerequisites to get started with my code development. It includes Git Bash, Visual Studio Code, Terraform software, and understanding a few other things. Right now, the Terraform is the declarative language. Okay, Terraform is called as a declarative language. It's very easy to write, don't worry. Right, any Terraform code that you are writing in will be following certain pattern, certain syntax. Right, the Terraform code is actually in a block by block. Okay, so anything that you are keeping between these two curly braces, that is called as a one block, guys. So now if you keep some code here, this is called as a block. Getting me? One block of statement is created. Like that, the Terraform is code is actually a blocked kind of code. We need to keep everything in a blocks. When you are keeping the code in a blocks, you should give the name of the block as well, right? So here, if you are writing the code to use the AWS as a provider, then the block name is provider. You see, this is what the advantage of the Visual Studio Code, guys. Let me do it one more time. Now, as I said, right, the Terraform is a block kind of a code, right? Anything that you are trying to write, it should be a block, and you should give the name of the block. So the very first block of code that I'm trying to write is provider block. The moment when you type provider, you see I'm getting some suggestions. Yes, I wanted to use the provider block. Just select the suggestion. It automatically fill up the required syntax for you. You see the syntax? Provider, that's the block name. And you are getting some suggestions as well here. And in the quote mark, you need to give the provider name. Like you are planning to use this provider block to which provider? Getting me? Is it AWS provider, Azure provider, Google Cloud, or whatnot? Correct? So give the provider name. In our case, the provider name is AWS. Give the AWS over there. I'm done with my code. So this is the provider block, and the block name is, I meant to say the provider name is AWS, and you start the block here, you end the block here. Now inside this open and close curly braces, right? Inside this, now you need to define certain characteristics of this particular block. What does it mean by the characteristics, guys? In general, some details about the block, correct? Some details about the provider, correct, in a way. So here I'm actually writing the code for my AWS provider, right? So inside the braces, I need to provide some AWS information. What kind of the information usually you define? Hey, I wanted to, right? I wanted to use the AWS provider to deploy my resources in the specific region, right? Usually, even that is first thing what you do in if you're logging into the AWS console as well, correct? If you go to AWS console, the very first thing that you do is select the region most of the times, right? So now you define those information within the block. Hey, I wanted to tell you in which region I wanted to use this AWS provider region. You see the suggestion? Just use the suggestion. Automatically it fill up the equal to for you, and it is now asking you the options. Hey, tell me what is the region that you wanted to work on. Hey, I wanted to work on US East 1 region, and you keep the value in the quote mark. That is the mandatory. Now you see your code is more colorful. That is the advantage of the code editors rather using your plain text editor. Now you see the colors are keep on changing, and whenever you see this kind of a tilt, a red symbol, look like there is a syntax issue. What is the syntax issue? The value that you are giving for this region, this is not ended. This is not started off quote mark. So I need to give the quote mark here. Now you see that red mark is gone. That's how you need to understand that the code is very clean. I'm done, guys. I'm done with my provider block. So any Terraform code that you are writing should be a block by block. Any block should have the block name, and here this is the provider block. The based on the block name, you need to give the corresponding name here. Yes, my provider is AWS, and within the block, we need to give the details about that particular block. What is that you wanted to tell? That's how it is. Good. Now, whenever you are writing the Terraform block of code, right? So within the block, whenever you are defining some information like this, the left side, whatever you see like a region, that is called as a argument. The right side, whatever you see, that is called as a value. How do you know that the argument will be region, correct? Who said that the argument will be region, correct? That is where we need to get this whole syntax. Hey, if I want to use the AWS as a provider in the Terraform code, tell me what is the syntax that I need to follow, right? What will be my left side argument name? What and all different arguments can be given here, correct? All this information, you should get it from the Terraform documentation only. You get into the Terraform documentation and you read the AWS provider documentation here. This documentation will tell you how to use the code, like how to compose the code. Don't worry about this lengthy documentation, guys. I'll take you to the right place. Yeah, you see here, just come here. Argument reference, right? So this argument reference documentation will tell you what and all different arguments that can be given inside the provider block. You see, following arguments are supported in the AWS provider block. It's very clearly telling. Now we know that there is a provider block here, and now inside the block I need to give my arguments, right? Now you look into this list. Access underscore key is one of the argument. For this argument we need to give the access key, right? And like this you can see many arguments here. All these are the arguments. Argument and the corresponding value. Argument and the corresponding value. Most of the arguments are optional, guys. Whichever is optional, we don't need to worry. Whichever is mandatory, you need to start giving them based on the requirement. Help me guys to understand. In general, if you wanted to work with the AWS cloud, minimum things, what and all things you need. Let's say you always compare with the AWS console only. If you wanted to go to AWS console and start creating something, I would say the first thing is we need to have some credentials to connect it to AWS console, maybe a username and password. The second thing is you select the region. That is good enough, right? Then onwards, it's about your EC2 or S3 or Route 53. That's a different case, right? When it comes to the AWS level, at top level, login, then choose the region. So here I already selected the region. Now I need to tell how to logging into the AWS to start creating something, right? If it is AWS management console, then that is a username and password. But here this is all a command based, right? This is all a script based. Which credentials that I need to use here, guys, in order to connect it to the AWS to start creating something? You need to use access key and the secret access key. So that's where you can see here the access key. Okay, that is the argument which we need to give the access key. Take that, put it here, and the value you keep your access key there. Now come back here, look into your whole documentation again. I'm not giving all this. Region I already took care of. You see, secret underscore key is the argument that it is suggesting me to use to give the secret key. Take that, put it there, and give the secret key. Getting me, guys? Now, how do you get the access key, secret access key? That is your login, right? As an IAM user, you should be having your access key, secret access key for connecting to AWS, right? You use and you keep it there. For now, let me generate them. I will go to AWS console and I'll go to IAM because I don't have access key, secret access key. So I'm just creating one for me. I'll just create one new user. The UI is taking way longer, guys. Yeah. So let's say I'm creating a user called PR, and you see here provide user access to console. I don't need a console access now. I just need a programmatic access, right? So I'm not selecting this option. Attach a policy. For now, let me give the administrator access. I'm just giving the full access. Go to next. Create a user. Right. So select the user, security credentials, create access key, secret access key. You see here, I wanted to use this for my command line base. Confirm, next, create, take this access key and keep it here. Take the secret access key, keep it here as a value. Now here, let me click on done. Done, guys. So now I'm done with my provider block. So that means in this provider block, I'm telling that, hey, please use this access key, use this secret access key, and use this region, and use this AWS as a provider, and start creating the resources. That is what is my provider block. I'm done with this. Are we good with this so far, guys? So I'm just going way slow to understand all these different things, guys. Now, what is our final goal? So should we create a EC2 server, right? So let's say I wanted to create a EC2 instance on my AWS cloud, but I don't want to use the AWS console. Just to get started with, to understand what is this Terraform, right? So EC2 is a resource, right? Yes or no, guys? EC2 instance is a resource, right? I want to create a EC2 instance, right? EC2 instance is the resource, right? So now I need to know how to write a block. One block is completed. Now I'm writing the second block, guys. Okay. This is my second block of code. This block is completed. This block is all about telling that, hey, I wanted to create on AWS. I'm done. Now I'm writing a second block of code. In this second block of code, I need to tell, hey, I want a EC2. This is how we need to create EC2. Now for this block, I need to give the name as well, right? So the block is resource. Maybe I can remove this, and you see, resource is the block name, and you hit enter. It automatically filling up the required syntax for you. So the syntax will be like this. For resource block, resource is the block name. Then you tell that, okay, you are trying to create what kind of the resource. Here I'm creating a resource called EC2. So just tell that, hey, I want to create a EC2. Now you give the name of the resource, maybe maybe web server, right? I want to create a web server. Just give some name for that. Any name would be fine. So because my code editor is automatically giving me some simple auto formatted syntax, I just fill up this. But usually, how do you know this whole syntax, guys? Let's say, what will be my block name? What will be the type? What will be the name? What will be the values inside the block? From where do you get all of these? That's where we need to get into the documentation again. So let's say I'll go to Terraform. Here Terraform, I want to know the code or the syntax to create a EC2 instance. Okay, just get into the documentation, guys. So if you look into this Terraform documentation, in the left side you can see that for AWS provider, okay, all these are the different resources that can be created using Terraform. You can see all of them in the list, many. Out of all these, now I wanted to know how to write a Terraform code for creating a EC2 instance. So you select EC2 service. In the EC2 service, you select resources list. In the resources, I wanted to create a EC2 instance. So just select this AWS instance. Now you get into the documentation here. The Terraform is telling that, hey, if you want to create a EC2 instance, your resource type is AWS instance. Okay, so let me use this. So this is not EC2 now. This should be EC2 underscore instance. That's what the documentation is suggesting me to use. I can't go with my own, right? Okay, the resource name is, sorry, the resource type is AWS instance. The resource name can be anything that you like it. Then open the curly brace, close the curly brace. Now within this block, you need to tell how you are expecting the instance to be created. That means the instance characteristics, which AMI, which key pair, which network, all these things now we need to tell within these two braces. That's it. How do you know that? Just look into the documentation, right? So if you do little scroll down, you see the argument reference is there. Now it is telling you, hey, if you wanted to tell which AMI that it has to use, just use the argument name called AMI. Let me use that AMI. Sorry. Now, what else that we need to give, guys? Usually, as a get start with, okay. Uh, at minimum, what are all things that you need to do? Maybe AMI. Maybe just to do a little scroll down because most of the options are optional. Maybe I wanted to give the instance type, correct? You see, instance underscore type is the argument name. Take it. When you are actually typing something on the Visual Studio Code, the suggestions, the pop-ups are automatically coming. You don't need to do any key. You don't need to press anything, guys. The moment when you type and just give a second gap, it automatically give you the suggestions. Hey, these are the possible suggestions that you can use of. You don't need to click anything there. It should give you automatically, right? If that is a suggestion that you are expecting, just click on the suggestion to automatically fill up the rest of the syntax for you. Just artificial intelligence, AI, right? And this is the value that I want to give, right? Like that, go into this argument list and see which argument will be more suitable for your requirement. I wanted to tell the key name. Okay, take this. This is the key pair name, guys. I can't tell a key pair. You need to use the same name, whatever the documentation says for your argument name. You can't go with your own. Like that, you go and pick up all the required stuff here. You see here, security group, subnet ID, anything, user data, script, all these things are there. Now you start filling these options. Let's say instance type, I wanted to use t2.micro. Key pair name is dpt11, right? The AMI, you need to give the AMI ID, right? If you don't have the ID, you can get it from your AWS. Pretty much this is your golden AMI ID, right? So let me get the ID. Do I have the golden AMI? I don't have. That's okay. I'll just get one AMI ID from here. The first time when you're writing the code, right? Yes, so you may feel that why are all of these? Better to go and start filling the form again and again, but not really. So this is the ID. I wanted to use this AMI. Take that and put that in a value here. You see that all the values are in the quote mark. As of now, my goal is not to create a EC2 server, guys. I just wanted to show you the power of Terraform. That's it. Okay. Just to get started with today's lecture, how simple it is. Then I'll start showing you the different ways how to create a VPC, subnet. I'll show all of them in start from tomorrow lecture. I'm just get started with one simple thing. I think I'm done with my EC2 block. The remaining and all like optional. If you don't select VPC, subnet and all, you know, right? By default, that will be get deployed it into the default VPC. So for now, I'm okay to get started with a simple. I'm done with my Terraform code, guys. Just a two blocks. One is a provider block. One is the resource block. Once your code is completed, now you need to execute this code. Okay. To execute the code, you need to open your bash shell. Okay. You see here, this is my bash shell, right? This is my bash shell. In this bash shell, now we need to run the Terraform commands. The problem here is I'm actually writing the code in the Visual Studio Code, but in order to execute this code, I need to come to my bash shell. It's too annoying, right? I need to edit the code here. I need to come back to the bash shell to run the commands. So the Visual Studio Code makes your life easier. Rather using this bash shell in a separate window altogether, let me close that. The same bash shell will be get opened within Visual Studio Code itself as a one more panel. You can just go to these dots, click on terminal. Hey, can you give me a one more new terminal? You see, you will get a terminal in the Visual Studio Code itself. Now the flexibility is the left side you can see the list of files. The right side top you can see the editor panel to write a code. In the below now you see your terminal. Now you start writing the commands here. More easy. Everything can be done in one single window. If at all, right? If at all the Visual Studio Code is not giving the bash shell here, then you can just look into this down arrow symbol. This is where you can see all the possible terminals that are applicable or installed in your machine. You see here, I can see the PowerShell, I can see the Windows command prompt, I can see the Git bash, which you wanted to, you can just go and choose it here. Let's say I want the Windows prompt, let's say, just take it. You see the Windows CMD is open. I can close that as well. That's how you can choose which shell that you wanted to use from this list as well. For me, the Git is the default. So the moment when I open, I'm getting the same thing. The Git bash will show in the list here. Sorry. Yeah. The Git bash will show in the list only if the bash is already installed in your machine, guys. If the software itself is not installed, definitely it will not give you the option here to choose. So the Visual Studio Code will automatically identify all the shells that are installed in your machine. If not installed, it will not show you here in the list. For any reason, if your bash shell is not showing in the list here, though the shell is installed, just go to this plus symbol. Sorry. There will be a option to add a shell. Yeah, you just click on that, select it as a default. Now you search for the shell. Yeah, I wanted to use the bash. This is how you can get it, and just select that, then that will be get added. Just do some experiment. You will get your Visual Studio Code up and running fine. All set. Now everything is ready, right? All what you need to do is run the Terraform commands now, because I am done with my code, right? The very important thing is, whenever you are running the Terraform command to execute your code, ensure that your present working directory is same folder where you have kept your file. This is important. Whenever you are running the commands to execute the code, ensure that your present working directory is same folder where you actually written the code. In my case, my provider.tf is the file, right, which is actually created inside the Terraform underscore code folder, right? You see this folder. You should be in the same folder when you are writing the, or when you are executing the commands, guys, or else it will not work. Because By default, the Terraform commands will be looking into the present working directory to get the files to execute them. Good with that? The very first command that you need to give here is Terraform init. This is the first command that you need to run once you're done with your code development, right? Just run Terraform init command being in the same present working directory where you have kept your code. The Terraform init command is actually initializing your AWS provider. Keep on monitoring what is happening in the left side as well. Currently only provider.tf file is there that I just created. Now you see there is one more folder created .terraform as well automatically when you have executed the Terraform init command. Basically what the init command is doing, guys, the Terraform is a different product done by HashiCorp. AWS is the different product of Amazon, right? How would your Terraform software know that it has to connect it to AWS to create all of this, correct? So whenever you run a Terraform init command, it is actually initializing your AWS provider, initializing a AWS provider in the sense it is actually downloading and keeping the required plugins. Okay, you see here it is actually installing the plugins. That means the Terraform will download the required top up additional softwares or plugins in a way technically. It downloads the plugins related to the AWS provider. It is going to keep all those plugins under the .terraform folder. If you look into the .terraform folder, under the .terraform, you can see a providers, you can see a Terraform, HashiCorp, AWS. Inside that somewhere you can see AWS provider, AWS.exe, something like something, right? So basically in shortcut, it is actually downloading the AWS provider related plugins and keeping them in the .terraform folder. So the Terraform will actually use this plugin help to connect it to the AWS and start interacting with the AWS to create the resources for you. Getting me? It's all automated. You don't need to do anything. Since you already said that I wanted to use AWS provider, it know that which provider software that it has to download. It will download and it will keep all those provider plugins in the .terraform folder for you. And that is what it is doing. That's the first step. Once that is done, then you can run the command called apply. Maybe I'll show you plan command as well. Of course, the Terraform init command is one time. The very first time you are working on the project, you need to do the init command so that it will set up all the provider related plugins. Only one time. The second command that you need to run here is a Terraform plan. Whenever you execute the Terraform plan command, it will actually tell you if at all you execute this code, what and all resources will be get created or modified or destroyed in the AWS cloud. It will just tell you. It will never create it in AWS in actually, but rather it will just tell you that, hey, if you really execute this code, this is the EC2 server that will be get created. That is how the plan will be created for you. You see the output here. If I come back, whenever I have executed the Terraform plan, wherever you see the plus symbol, those are getting created. And you see here, it is actually a web server is getting created. And these are the details of the web server, how it will be get created. Whichever the values that you given, it is telling that, hey, the server will be created with this value. Whichever you have not given, it is telling that we don't know that value that will be created later. That's how it is. You see, key name, instance type. This is just a plan, guys. Once you review the plan, if you are okay with the plan, yes, this is what I'm trying to. Yes, I wanted to create one resource in my AWS. Yes, that is what I'm looking for. If you are good with this plan, then you go and run the command called Terraform apply. It's a precautionary to check for the plan before you go and actually execute the code. So once you feel better with the plan, yes, that is what you are expecting, then you go and run the Terraform apply command. Then it actually, you know, execute this code in your AWS cloud. So if I come back to my AWS and look for the EC2 instances here, as of now, there are no instances. There are no instances. Let me come here. When you run Terraform apply command one more time, sorry, when you run the Terraform apply, it is actually creating a plan one more time. You see, it is creating a plan. But this time, hey, this is what is going to happen in AWS. Are you okay with this? Just a precautionary. If you feel that yes, this is what I'm looking for, this is the server that I'm looking for, then you say yes. Please go ahead and create this server for me. At the time of you are running any Terraform command, could be a init, could be a plan, could be a apply. You don't need to specify the file name in which file you have actually written the code, because as I said, the Terraform by default look into the present working directory to get the files that are having the .tf extension. That means whenever you run the Terraform apply, it will look into your present working directory. The file that are having the .tf extension, it automatically get that file and execute the files. So you don't need to tell that, hey, this is the file you need to execute. If at all you have multiple files with the .tf extension, yes, all those files will be get executed at one go. That's how the Terraform works. Right? So if you have multiple files with the .tf, yes, all the files will be executed at one go. That's how the Terraform works. You are not giving the specific file to be executed. And we'll see more best practices, more enhancements later. For now, the idea is just to see how the Terraform works. I'm not really focusing on the betterments on the real-time practices today itself. Got me? I'll talk about all those, different scenarios start from tomorrow. What will happen if there are multiple files, all these things. For now, let me give yes. You see now it is actually trying to create a EC2 server for you. It is showing that, hey, I'm currently creating a server. This is still creating. So for 10 seconds are elapsed, it is still creating. 20 seconds are elapsed, still it is creating. Every 10 seconds it will give you the update what's happening. It is still creating. The Terraform is actually used the access key and the secret access key that you defined in the provider block. It will use these credentials, it will connect it to AWS programmatically, then it will be executing your resources, and those are getting created. The resource creation is completed. This is the instance ID that is got generated for your instance. The apply is completed. The report says that one resource is actually added. Now if you go back to your AWS and refresh, you see that the instance is deployed. That's what is the Terraform. Good. When you feel that, hey, I don't want this server to be, then your command will be destroy. Terraform destroy is the command which will go and destroy all the resources that what you said in your file. It's the same file again, right? It's the same file. There are no code changes. Right? I'm not changing anything in the file. If you say destroy, it will take your file. What are all resources that you define there, those resources will now be get destroyed. You see, it is telling that, hey, I want to destroy one server. Are you okay with this? Wherever it is trying to delete, it is giving you a minus because that is going to terminate. If you are okay, just give yes. If you are no, just cancel this. You see, destroy cancelled. Now a quick question for you. If I go with the Terraform apply one more time, what will happen? The server is already created, right? The server which you wanted to, right? This server is already created some time back. The first time when you executed the apply command, the server is created here, right? Correct. Now I'm running the apply one more time. The second time I'm executing the same code. Okay, the same script I'm executing a second time. The Terraform will tell you that, hey, there are no changes in your code. Already you have a server ready, and it is telling that nothing to change. So the Terraform is intelligent enough to understand that this is already created, nothing to do. So it is not doing anything for you. It is not creating a one more server, guys. No, it is telling that nothing to do because the server is already there based on your requirement. So how that is doing, we'll definitely look into tomorrow onwards. We don't need to worry all this. But for now, the last command that I wanted to run is destroy. So creating a infrastructure and destroying the infrastructure managing is now way easy using the Terraform code. So that's what is our goal, and we'll see some best practices in Terraform start from the next lecture. I'll say yes. Now it actually destroys the server. You see, it is actually destroying the server. If you go back to your AWS and just do a refresh, you see the server is actually going down. It is actually terminating the server. So everything I'm handling through programmatic way. It is actually destroying. Server is going down. Yeah, the server is terminated, and here you see that it is actually destroyed. That's it.